Welcome to the Opinionated Benchwarmers Podcast, episode 167. Your opinionated benchwarmers are back to do what we do best, and that's discuss sports. Of course, I got both of my brothers in here with me. How you fellas feeling?
Yeah, man. You know what? I feel good. I feel real good, man. Like I just want to take time out to just give our flowers to us, man. I don't know if the listeners know, but we've been doing this podcast thing for a while now, with like over five something years, but we were listening only. We on YouTube now. We doing numbers. We got over 300 something subscribers, man. It feels good. And so I just want to take this time out to, give to give praise to y'all because I know how much hard work people don't see the work that goes behind this and the preparation. So again, I feel good and I'm just happy to see the progress and I see something, showing up. So hopefully we can keep it going though.
Yeah. Man, praise to you as well though, brother. I know you're taking a humble approach right there and putting it on us, but it's a collective effort. Obviously, like you said, we it had some years in the game, but the main thing too is always being able to share, what we have with the world. That was kind of the main thing of us generating this. We always had the countless sports debates or talked
Yeah.
among ourselves, whether it was in person, whether it was the group meet, whatever it was. And so, we decided, you know what, let's let the world hear this. And so
Yeah.
then took it from, like you said, the listening only to now taking it to YouTube to continue to expand that. And one thing as well, too, man, we appreciate everyone who subscribes thus far. We appreciate everybody that's been along the journey for these years, even before we went to YouTube. It just always feels good when you know that you have people in your corner. So ultimately,
Yeah.
first and foremost, we know that we got each other's backs and we know that we in each other's corners, but also too, man, all the people that's been rocking with OB, man, we appreciate y'all.
You're
For
about to make me
sure.
shed a tear in here, man.
And a little
Look, man,
violin going, huh?
make sure y'all subscribe to the podcast. As those guys spoke, we're on YouTube. Make sure that you join the over 300 subscribers that's already doing and counting. It's probably more by now. It was 321 when I looked yesterday. I don't know. But we appreciate the love and support. If you are a fan of audio, of course, we're on every platform there is to be on for podcasts. And I know we're on your favorite podcast platform. So just make sure that you search us up and subscribe if you like what you hear for your commutes to work or wherever you're going out there. But I don't know about you guys, but I wouldn't want to do this with anybody else, guys. I'm gonna wrap it up with that last sentimental statement. But here we are in the heat of the battle. Game one, we watched it last night. Boston Celtics, Dallas Mavs. Of course, we already gave our predictions. Of course, I have personally the Mavs uh, winning this game in six. I said that before the series started. I'm sticking to my guns. I still think the Mavs will figure it out. But what a game last night. There's so many storylines, and we could jump into that. But I mean, I'll let y'all lead it off, man. What's y'all first thoughts of this game one?
I think it was a well game plan game by Boston and what they did, right? They really just decided to not double well they picked and choose when they doubled Luca, right? They let him score and get his as you've seen his scores, but they made sure nobody else involved. And that team, as we all know, as we said on the previous episode, was Luca is the engine of that team. He is the guy that gets it going. He's the guy that get assists. I think he only had like something like one assist through the first half. It was something crazy like that. Kyrie was putting clamps. He only had 12 points throughout the whole game. It's just, I would say they had good looks throughout the shot. Sometimes it is a make or miss lead. But when you're not, when the Boston Celtics are a good 3 point shooting team, the best 3 point shooting team, and you're not hitting, you already put yourself in the hole. So I like their game plan against Luka. I expect the Mavs to shake back, and make it more of a game. Who knows if they win or not? But I'm hoping to see a better game.
Yeah, no, I agree with you and definitely agree with a lot of the points that you made there. One of the things that you talked about was that 3-point line and kind of the differentiator there. We know that the Celtics throughout the course of this season, they have, historically this season, been a team that gets up a lot of threes. You saw that advantage be 16-7 as far as 3 points made, which is, of course, a big disparity there. I felt like the Celtics really guarded the 3-point line pretty well. And it goes to your point of them kind of sticking to their guns and not doubling, Luca or really sinking down on rotations too much and making sure they stick to those other guys. But I thought that for me, in looking at the game and assessing it, I felt that Kristaps Porzingis, man, was the biggest difference maker within that game. You look at a Celtics team that for the last, I want to say, leading up to that game, the last 38 days or 40 days or so, not having a guy in Kristaps Porzingis, which is a weapon on both ends of the floor, a big, agile 7-footer, able to kind of stretch the floor and space it. But you saw him coming, I think, in that first half and have 18 points, I want to say it was, within that first half. And so he really kind of led that charge early. You really saw that that's when Boston really went on that kind of sustained run that they had within that first half, was when he came off the bench. So I think that that's going to be really an interesting development, honestly, in this series is, what does it look like? Can Kristaps Porzingis, maintain that, what he brought in game one? And I thought that, honestly, too, even on the defensive end in his limited action, I thought that he looked more effective than what we saw in the Defensive Player of the Year, Rudy Gobert, last, round. You didn't see Dallas have as many of those, lobs and finishes at the rim. So there's just a lot to really unpack in game one. I don't want to kind of take it all and things of that sort, but those are kind of some of the things that, I noticed through game one.
Yeah, I mean, y'all mentioned a 3-point disparity. I mean, you had 7 players on the Celtics team that hit 2+ threes throughout the game. I mean, when you look at a game like that, and that's why, people laughed at me, Mavs in 6. I still think the Mavs could win in 6. When you have a team shooting like that from the 3-point line, it's tough to beat. And you always hear the saying, you live by the 3, you die by the 3. I agree. I think Kristaps Porzingis is the story here. I was one of the guys that thought he would be a little rusty after taking what he was out for like 40, 50 days. So I thought he was going to come out, a little rusty, but he didn't. He proved it. I think that Coach Jason Kidd, he's going to have to figure it out. With that switch with Porzingis, it's just not going to work out. You're going to have to put somebody agile on him. You're going to have to put a body on him because as we saw together, it was like 4 or 5 times he's hitting a 15-footer over somebody that he just shot over him. He's 7'3". So, once they figure that piece out, I think they'll be fine. I think that when you look back at the trade, I saw 2 interesting pieces. I'm out in the DMV. I'm going to say the first one. This will be the 6th year in a row that a former Wizard will win the NBA Finals. That's with Kristaps Porzingis, and then on the other side, with Dallas, Gafford, was former Wizard. So that let's get that one out the way. That's an interesting fact out here. But secondly, when you look at what the Celtics did to get Kristaps Porzingis, it's ridiculous, man. It's highway robbery. The Celtics, all they had to give up was Marcus Smart, and they gave up a pick. And then they ended up giving up Tyus Jones that they got from another trade. But when you look at what they received Kristaps Porzingis, a first round from the Grizzlies and a first round for the Warriors for this upcoming season. I mean, but you see what he brings to the table. I think that he has finally found the perfect home where he can mesh with. And I think he's found a team that he can really that he really fits with. And I think that with Tatum, I think he's a very unselfish player, as well as Jaylen Brown. I think it's just an unselfish team where he can just be himself, right? He could be himself, be the 7'3" guy who just shoot Jays, doesn't really have to bang in the paint like that. Now, the other thing I will say, and then I want you guys to comment on this, is of course the elephant in the room, right? Kyrie facing his former team in Boston. He didn't have a good stint in Boston. He admitted that he wasn't mature enough to take on that pressure. He did a lot of things that he regretted, which I respect. But when you look at Kyrie going 6 for 19, it does kind of concern me. And I realize he didn't play the full game. He only played 37 minutes, but to go 6 for 17, to me in the first quarter, even in the first quarter when the game was tight initially, in the first 7 minutes of that first quarter, I felt like Kyrie was a little bit too passive in the beginning, and they're going to need way more from him if they expect to win this series.
I expect him to show up. I think Kyrie is one of those guys that has that mentality that, he realized that he did not have his best game. And usually when you see that happen with these type of guys that are built the way he is, and he talked about Kobe a little bit in his mentor, with that type of mentality, you expect him to be there and it not be their fault game too. I think he's going to show up big time next game and make it more competitive. Kyrie can't be guarded. I know he can be contained if he's having a bad game. Like he said after the game, some of his shots was just a little long, a little to the right, to the left, and all you can do is just chalk it up and play the next game, you know. And I think Kyrie's at a good place, and we talked about his maturity last game or last episode, and you can see some of that even in the press conference. He's still at peace. He's still like kind of in this calm. He know this is not a race but a marathon, and so he's been here. He's been down before. He's been down in that series when he played the Warriors, and they came back and won that 3-1 series. So I don't think there's any panic there. I think Kyrie will shake back game two.
Yeah, and to that point, he has to shake back game too. You know, it's one of those things that you're gonna need Kyrie Irving to be special in this series. This cannot be a series where it's a good game here, a not good game there, and things of that sort. Boston is too good of a team. They're too talented of a team from top to bottom. And the thing about it is he has to play at an elite level. You know, you look at Boston and they have guys of the likes of Drew Holiday and also Derek White, two guys that were, I think, second team All NBA defensive team. And even you can throw a guy at him at times, like if a switch happens, like a Jaylen Brown or a guy, here or there, even a Jason Tatum. Like they have several bodies that they can throw at him. And so it's going to be to him like he can't have that type of game one performance, and it can't be a back and forth. He can't come out and play well game two and then have another bad performance game three. Like he has to be special. You kind of alluded to the time, of course, he and LeBron, along with that Cavs team, came back from that 3-1 deficit. And it's going to take that type of effort to me from him and Luka coming in and night out. We know what Luka's going to give you. Rob alluded to it last podcast. Luka's going to give you his 38-8. Like that's going to be pretty much automatic on top of whatever else he can do. But Kyrie has to be that guy. He's going to have to show up, and he's going to have to put pressure consistently on Boston.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. Nothing else to say there. I think you guys, hit the nail on the head. But, Kyrie definitely is going to have to step up if they expect to make some noise. Now, I do feel as though on Sunday night, that's the next game at 8 p.m. on ABC. I feel as though the Mavs is going to steal them one in Boston, and we'll have ourselves a series. But we'll see. Anything else with the NBA Finals? I know it's very early. We'll be recording throughout throughout the series. So, anything we got to add, we definitely can add it. But I think those are the major pieces in there. Anything else interesting y'all saw?
No, during the game, I will say that Boston is one of those unique teams where Luka could, in previous series, right, when he do a pick and get switched on to somebody, and Luka could take advantage of those matchups. Now he's going from Drew Holiday guarding him. He's getting that pick and switching on to Derek White, who's no slouch at defense. And they're just switching those. And it's like, all right, now you got to get guarded by Derek White. Okay, then you switching it again. All right, now you're getting guarded by Jaylen Brown. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's not stopping with, because they have the defensive players to match up with him. They're going to have to find another way to be creative than the pick and roll game. So I thought that was interesting watching the game.
Very, very much so. And I think as well, too, is Boston has the pieces to also make Luka and Kyrie have to guard as well, too. They have the pieces to make them have to play on both sides of the ball. So I think that that's just another interesting point. As we've already said, Luka's going to be Luka. I have no concerns about Luka.
Yeah, he's going to drop 30 every night.
We saw him, 30, and he left the game early or whatever. Some people were talking about the prop bets that were missed based upon that. I saw that. But still, ultimately, like to your point, it is very interesting how they defended him.
Yeah.
I say this about one thing. In corporate America, money hides a lot of sins. And I think in sports, winning hides a lot of sins. And what I mean by that is Mr. Jason Tatum come to the front. And I think that him going 6 for 16, him only having 16 points, I think that he adds on to kind of what I said. I think I said it last podcast. I know I said it somewhere, is that he tends to kind of shrink in these moments. They're going to need more from him. And, they won this game because they caught fire. But I think that they're going to need more than him, and they're going to need a better performance. I don't know what he got to do, but I'm starting to think that this is just who he is. And I don't know if Porzingis is going to sustain this type of performance. And I expect Coach Kidd to make an adjustment here. But Porzingis may not give you 20 every night. We're going to need something from proclaimed. I don't even know anymore. I used to think he was the best player on Boston's team. But I think at times Jaylen Brown looks like the best player on the team. But I think that winning really kind of hides that, but he's going to have to figure it out. I think that he's going to have to come back hungry if he expects Boston to sustain something or to make some noise.
Yeah, for sure. And if I want to, speaking on that point, I want to see if y'all noticed this towards the game when the game was out of hand, when Dallas pulled their starters out. Boston pulled their starters, but they left Tatum in there. They're trying, I feel, could be wrong, like they're trying to play this game of get his stats up, boost him up so he can be that MVP, whatever, because Jaylen Brown's numbers are obviously better than what Tatum's was. So now it seems like they're trying to line it up to where Tatum can get that. So pay attention to these games and at the end and who they keeping in because that's kind of I
Yeah.
don't like how that's being done and playing it. You know, you playing against second stringers to get your numbers up
Yeah.
towards for
I,
the end.
It didn't
I
help
was
much.
right. No, I was going to ask y'all since you kind of locked it up. Who do y'all think is the alpha on that team now? Who's the
I don't
alpha on the
know.
Celtics?
I don't know anymore. I really don't.
Yeah,
I
it's saying a
mean,
lot if you don't
like this
know too.
playoffs, the playoffs have like shown me a lot. Like I thought it was Tatum out the gate, but I've seen a lot of Tatum and him faltering in these types of positions. I mean, the guy was just in the NBA Finals in 2022, and he didn't play well in that series. And we've seen him be in the playoffs. Like we said, he's been made it to the conference finals or more at least 85% of his career. So I don't know. I haven't seen Jason kill. Like I see him kill. I see him drop 50 in the regular season. But then I just think, but to shorten up my answer to you, Ramon, just watching Jalen throughout these playoffs, it's the reason why he was the conference finals MVP. I think that he's by far the alpha. He's been performing like he's the alpha. I mean, he dropped 22 last night. So I mean, I think that, like Lo said, I mean, you can pad your stats all you want, but you know, I think that by far Jalen has shown that he's not scared. He's not afraid of the moment. And I'm no, man. I'm a Tatum guy. I like Tatum. He's one of my, I like one of my favorite players to watch. But I don't know. He's kind of disappointed me the same way AE kind of raised his stock with me. I think the Tatum is lowering his stock with me.
Didn't he
Yeah.
admit to being a little nervous? Did y'all?
Yeah, he did. He
Yeah.
did. Yeah, he did admit that. Yeah, in the press conference, he said it isn't, it is nerve-wracking playing in the finals. So I don't know. But Los, I spent enough time. I guess this
No, I'll just say, yeah, I'm right there with you. I think, we know what the narrative is going to be if this thing turns out where Jaylen Brown does become the finals MVP. What the narrative okay, can you do it without Jaylen Brown? Is Jaylen Brown dragging you? We've seen it for years with these type of things that's going on. But with a potential split coming later on, I want to show I can do it and I can be that guy. I feel like that narrative is lining up perfectly if Jaylen Brown continues to be what he's doing and outperforming Tatum. It's unfair, but it is what it is. They're both all-star players.
Yeah. And Tatum needs to prove it in LA. He needs to prove it right in LA. That's where you can do it.
So I mean, the disparity, but the game, and just to wrap that up, we moving on. But the disparity between rebounding wasn't that bad. I mean, the only really glaring discrepancy is that 3-point shooting. So even though on paper it's a blowout game, this game, this series and the disparity between the talent of these teams, it's not far off. And if you're watching the game, the game. It's just one game. Just like Jalen said, I love how Jalen Brown said that. It's just one game. Don't get cute. It's one game. So long series to go. I'm interested to, continue to cover it and to continue to give my thoughts on this thing. So we got to get to the next thing, the most important thing. Get that out the way. If you're just starting to listen to us, you're just starting to subscribe to us. Obviously, all three of us are Lakers fans, and we've been thrown for a loop for the past 3 weeks. Um, we've been hearing JJ Redick. JJ Redick starts a podcast with LeBron, and we're speculating that LeBron's trying to get JJ into the head coaching spot. And then it was reported, I think it was reported like what, Saturday? A week from today, I think it was reported that JJ was the favorite and we're zeroing in on him. And then I think Woj just dropped a Woj bomb and let us know on Saturday morning, nah, dog, like we going after Dan Hurley, which is UConn's coach, coming off back-to-back championships with UConn. Started off in the ranks. He played ball at Seton Hall. We know the story. We know his coaching story. He started off. He led the high school team. The circuit in high school. He led that team to prominence, and then he left there, went to Rhode Island. He's been everywhere. But what he's done in 2018 up until this point at UConn and building that program up has been nothing short of remarkable. And honestly, guys, I'm not a huge fan of bringing somebody from college, but if we had to, it would be him.
Yeah, when I look at the situation, you right now, obviously he's the best college coach in college basketball that's speaking for the last 2 years, right? You go back to back championships in this environment, in the NIL system and everything that's going on there. That's something to talk about, right? That's just not a fluke, right? And so I like you said, I think the ceiling is very high for him, right? If we're gonna take a risk, I would much rather it be him than JJ Redick. We're gonna see what's gonna happen. It could still end up being JJ Redick, and we can put our foot in the mouth and we can figure things out because nothing is official, right? By the time this drop, we could be all just like, dang, the news, of course, dropped. And we just talked about this on the podcast. So
I
I
know,
hope it's
right?
him. I hope it's
Disclaimer.
him. Yeah, very. And I hope it's him. I really hope it's him over JJ Redick because of his experience. I don't know if y'all been seeing the clips online. I honestly haven't followed college as closely as I used to, but he is a fiery dude, man. Like I seen him slap a player and in excitement, and got away
Imagine him
with it.
slapping LeBron or
Yeah,
AD.
I was like, what is going on? Like, and he's like getting on the players. They say his practices are hard. I would love to see how that translates. Honestly, I don't know if that's going to translate. I've seen LeBron ruin coaches respectfully and like not listen to coaches respectfully. Like I've seen all that stuff
We
happen
saw it this past
before.
season.
We saw it this past season. So I'm really interested to see how this strong-headed coach that has this big personality comes into the NBA and deal with these personalities of players that are grown, right? Grown men that are getting paid millions. I know college players are getting paid now too, but it's a different environment, right? When you're dealing with an 82 season game. So I'll be interested. I want him, but I want to see how it translates.
Yeah, and it kind of I think it's something you tweeted, Los, but it kind of almost leans more towards some of those younger franchises that are really building up. It seems like he would be kind of more of a natural fit there of truly building a program, kind of in a sense, as they've stated. So it lets you know, in a sense, too, that the Lakers are kind of looking a little long term, with this as what is being reported and stated. It lets you know that they're seeing life, of course, after LeBron, even with making this coaching move, that they're not just thinking through the lens of only making it based upon LeBron. And I think that, as y'all have already said and alluded to, as you talk about kind of the two candidates that have been at the forefront, and JJ Redick and now, Dan Hurley, I definitely would be more so on the Hurley route. I want a guy that I've seen be a proven head coach, not a guy that's just kind of figuring it out as they may go. Um, Now I don't know the likelihood of this, but I would be kind of intrigued to see, okay, if you go and get Hurley, do you bring in a guy like JJ Redick on that staff? Would JJ Redick sit under a guy like Hurley and gain some of that coaching experience under him? So that's something that I really have my eyes on that I would think would be kind of an ideal scenario there.
Yeah, I mean, I like what you said. And, right now you look at it, Dan Hurley's the seventh highest paid college coach in the sport. So who's to say that this not as a leverage play? Coming off back-to-back championships, why wouldn't he be one of the top three highest paid coaches in college sports? So that does seem a little bit odd to me, a little bit, especially coming off the JJ Redick news. But I'm interested in it. I mean, I actually talked myself into kind of favoring maybe getting a JJ Redick, and trusting LeBron and that he would have LeBron's respect. We all know that JJ knows the game, and just hearing him talk about the game and analyze the game, one of my favorite basketball analysts right now, and just how he breaks down the game and breaks down each player's talents and everything. So he knows ball, and so I think with Dan Hurley or JJ, I think we'll be in a good spot. But obviously we have to fix the roster. And we have to do that as well to help whether we get Dan Hurley or not. All I'm happy about is that we got some guys that know how to draw plays and not write words on the whiteboard when you need to be drawing up plays. And you won't have to have a coach that has his hands in his pocket like Arthur all the time. So
I was just about to say that.
Man, it's getting real shady in here.
Thurman Ham almost got out the segment without catching a couple strays.
Yeah.
Nah, man, he paid. He'll be all right.
Now, I would say kind of just one additional point too to think about. It has been kind of historically a little bit difficult to pull those guys from the college ranks. You know, when they sit kind of at the top of college, it's been a little bit difficult. You know, we had the kind of song and dance with Coach K back in the day. Obviously, when Kobe was still playing and we were trying to grab him and he didn't come. And we know kind of all the years that they talked about, you know, Coach Cal. And I know he had coached in the NBA years past, but once he was at his heights at Kentucky, you kind of heard that routinely mentioned about him coming and coaching in the league, and it never quite happened. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out with this. Now, the only thing that, you know, I really kind of think about with these coaches, as Los alluded to, in the era of the NIL and the transfer portal and all of that, to me, it seems pretty stressful, you know, being in the college ranks, because not only are you regularly recruiting as you typically do, but you're constantly recruiting your own players at the same time and having to manage so many different things. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out and if that changes kind of the trend that we've seen of sometimes college coaches staying put.
No, that's a great point. That's a real great point. I was listening to something, I forget, I believe it was someone else's podcast, and they were saying that these teams and stuff have to throw fundraisers and get all these college, you know, alumni and all these guys to come in to pitch in to have money to compete with these other teams. It's became a whole different game now in college. And as you mentioned and alluded to, it is more stressful now to be a college coach. And listening to actually Dan Hurley, he is interested in jumping up and making the next step. He's made that very clear to his team. And he's right now still had no contract extension talk, none of that stuff. And I saw somewhere where the Lakers will have to pay out 1.8 million, which is not much, right? If they wanted to buy him out and sign a new contract. So again, I think there's no other, I forget the women's UConn's coach name. If you guys
Gino
know.
Auriemma.
Yes, Gino. Gino, I don't know if you guys saw it, but Gino told him the night before the news dropped. So the news dropped yesterday morning. So Wednesday night, he was actually with Dan Hurley and said, "Hey, you can win a lot of championships with the Lakers." I think they were at a dinner or something. You can win a lot of championships with the Lakers than somebody that has never coached before. You know who that story was about. Obviously, it was about JJ Redick. You know, he said he had knew nothing about the Lakers reaching out, none of that stuff. It was just kind of one of those things he mentioned to him. And then the news dropped the following day that the Lakers was interested in Dan Hurley, which came out of nowhere. They kept it on the wraps, which I love when we keep things on the wraps, right? Because again, I feel like it becomes more real. And anytime something get leaked early, I feel like it never happens, right? It falls through. So they were keeping it on the wraps. They want to keep the recruits there and all those type of things. So I'm looking. I hope Dan Hurley is the guy. Long story short.
Well, we should know something. We should know something soon. They met today, so we don't know the content of the meeting. But I mean, if I was the Lakers, I wouldn't have let him out the room. I know that. I wouldn't let him out of LA before he could dry that ink on that paper. But we'll see what happens, man. I'm interested in it. I'm glad we did. I'm glad we're doing this and look like we headed in the right direction. So, fellas, I think that's another wrap. We appreciate everybody that has hung out with us for this long. Like I said, make sure that you are subscribed to this YouTube channel. Just hit the like button on the video if you enjoyed the content. Make sure that you are subscribed as well. Run up the subscriptions, and then make sure that you are subscribed to the podcast on whatever your favorite podcast platform may be. Just search Opinionated Benchwarmers and subscribe so you can be notified when you can receive the content. But until next time, we out of here.
Later.